Hi, I'm Steffany Strange. Want to hear something scary?
Due to public health mandates and then a huge renovation, Camp Chaturanga in Illinois had been shut for 2 summers. So when the camp announced a limited reopening, 12 teenagers, anxious to be reunited with their old pals, jumped at the chance to attend. The first week was filled with kayaking, campfires, and s'mores. Late one night in Cabin Bluethorn, when all the adults and counselors were hopefully fast asleep, 6 of the 12 campers used the Ouija board, played light as a feather, stiff as a board, and then started telling scary stories. The night was off to a fun start, but when Joelle began to tell her story, the others grew quiet. Joelle shared an urban legend that she had just learned of. Candyman. A man with a hook for a hand and a taste for murder. Among other things, he was known to lure kids with candy, and if his hook didn't get you, a swarm of bees would. The others held their breath as Joelle said that she'd been told that there was one way to guarantee a meeting with Candyman, but only if you were brave enough to do it. You have to say his name, Candyman, 5 times while looking into a mirror. Her friends chuckled at the absurdity of the tale before quickly looking around for a mirror. The only one big enough they could find was in the cabin's bathroom, and there was no way they'd all fit in there. So, closing the door to the small bathroom, Joelle instead suggested using the selfie feature on her phone. That way, the entire group could do it together, which was great, as no one wanted to do it alone. They huddled around Joelle's phone, everyone in frame, their faces reflected back at themselves, waiting. And so it began. In unison, they chanted, Candyman, 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 Candyman. Everyone took a breath and looked at each other. Should they? Candy. Just then, a shadow moved quickly in the selfie frame behind them. They all jumped and screamed, scrambling and searching around. Outside the window was Leisha, another camper. Behind her in the distance were the other campers playing hide and seek with flashlights. She asked what they were doing. Joelle explained, asking if she wanted to join them. Nope, she said, running back to the game outside. So after calming down and regrouping, it was time to try again. They all huddled in and began their chant, this time at a faster pace. They said his name once, twice, 4 times, then all together for a 5th time. Candyman! For a brief moment, nothing happened. Until they all began to giggle. How ridiculous they all felt for believing in such a made-up story. Then the bathroom door flew open, the force of it making the wooden door splinter against the wall. Standing there, cloaked in darkness, was a figure. It was well over 6 feet tall, wearing a long coat with wool lapels. Slowly, stepping out of the small enclosed space, it raised its arm, revealing a hook embedded into the stump. A deep, rusty voice answered, "Yes." The teens scattered, screaming. One teenager raced for the door, but with a swift swing of his arm, Candyman gutted her. 2 others were trying to escape out the window, but his hook ended up in both of their backs, impaling them like cattle about to be hung. While retrieving his hook out of their bodies, the 3 remaining campers made it outside, crying for help. They kept looking back at the cabin, but he wasn't coming after them. The other campers ran over, unsure what to believe, but seeing there was trouble, grabbing their crying friends as they yelled about the man who came out of the bathroom. They all headed towards the counselor's cabin in the distance. Suddenly, they heard humming coming from Cabin Bluethorn. Ow! Joelle looked at her arm. She'd been stung. Bees! She screamed. Everyone took off running, but the swarm separated the 3 survivors from the others. Over 5,000 bees moved like one giant body, stinging the remaining selfie campers from Cabin Bluethorn. All the others could do was run for help. Within minutes, there was silence. The remaining bees flew off into the night, and all that remained were 3 almost unrecognizable, bloated and punctured bodies. No hook-handed man was ever found. No one brought to justice for the murders. The bees could not be explained even by nature experts. As for the 6 other campgoers, well, they'll be staying at home next summer, staying far away from reflective surfaces, and will never, ever dare to say his name, just in case he's waiting to finish off the job.
Miss Gibbons sat watching her twin daughters play. She desperately wanted to know what they were saying, but June and Jennifer had a sisterly bond so strong they had invented their own language. It was a language that only they could understand. Although she didn't understand the words, it appeared Jennifer was the boss. Since the girls were unwilling to participate in class, the girls struggled at school. In their hometown in Wales, they were the only non-white children, and they suffered relentless bullying due to their differences. Before long, they became known as the Silent Twins. Soon, they refused to engage with anyone else at all, becoming isolated and inseparable, and even mirroring each other's behavior. It became harder to tell them apart. It was as if their personalities were interchangeable. One day, a twin would appear as June, the next day, she would appear as Jennifer. Before long, a school nurse referred them for a psychiatric review, and they were being sent to separate boarding schools. But instead of helping them to establish independence without each other, the twins withdrew further into themselves. Staff at the schools would have to drag the girls from their beds. Without each other, they didn't communicate with anyone else at all. Realizing that being separated was making things worse, the twins were sent home. This time, Miss Gibbons watched her teens filling the pages of notebooks with stories and diary entries. When they ran out of paper, they began scribbling all over their bedroom walls. Along with their creativity, they also started to exhibit some undesirable behavior. The twins committed several petty crimes. This escalated to arson, and once again, June and Jennifer found themselves under their psychological assessments. This time, they were deemed unsafe to themselves and society and were committed to a maximum security psychiatric facility filled with dangerous criminals, housing some of the UK's most evil criminals. They remained in prison for several years, administered many different drugs and treatments with varying side effects trying to break their silence. At some point during their time in the facility, the twins, now young women, decided that in order for one of them to be able to live a full life, the other must die. Marjorie Wallace was visiting with the twins just before they became eligible to transfer to a lower security facility back in their hometown. She was a reporter and one of very few people they actually conversed with. During this particular meeting, Jennifer told her, "Marjorie, I'm going to have to die. We have decided." Of course, Miss Wallace was unsettled by this. She reported it to the medical staff, but they were not concerned since the twins were supervised have not proven to be risk of harm to themselves. The day they were set to travel to Wales, Jennifer leaned her head onto June's shoulder and fell into a coma and passed away quietly. Doctors ruled it as a heart attack despite no medical history of a heart condition and no toxins found in her body during the autopsy. She was only 29. It seemed a pact had been made, and one life indeed faded, finally allowing the other to thrive. The diaries that the twins had kept revealed they might not have been as close as originally perceived. June believed Jennifer was a dark shadow constantly possessing her. Despite their apparent bond and insistence on only communicating with each other, June was fearful of Jennifer. According to the entries, she was the dominant sister, often feeling disdain for June. After Jennifer's death, June kept her part of the bargain. She became fully cooperative and was subsequently released from hospital and put back into her community, where she continued to do well and still lives today. Has she really been possessed by her domineering twin while she was still alive? Had Jennifer truly willed herself to die despite a lifetime of domineering June? The truth behind the silent twins remains a mystery. Anusia didn't believe in anything supernatural. She was someone who needed to see things to believe them. To her, ghosts and jinns were excuses that parents used to stop their children from going out after dark. Anusia worked as a receptionist at the hospital. When her shift ended at 9 p.m., she would be wired from the busy day and go out till dawn to party, stumbling home only after the sun had risen. She knew it was dangerous, burning the candle at both ends, but working in a hospital, she also knew you only live once. One night after her shift, a colleague suggested that they try a new bar that had just opened. It was further out of town, but Anusia immediately agreed. They took 2 separate cars, of course one Anusia drove. The hours flew by as they were having fun, and it was soon 2 a.m. and time to call it a night. The cars took the same route back until they got to the Mohakali overbridge, the first ever flyover built in Bangladesh, where they parted ways back to their different homes. The road was deserted, not a soul in sight. Anusia didn't know if it was just because she was exhausted, but she felt the bridge had an eerie feeling to it. The wind whistling as they sped along. They were around the middle of the bridge when Anusia spotted something that caused her to panic. A woman in white running straight towards them. The passengers in Anusia's car shrieked in horror as the woman headed right for them, making no sign of stopping even after seeing the car. They had no way of stopping in time. Anusia flinched as the woman just stood there, waiting for Anusia's car to hit her. Anusia instinctively wanted to swerve to the side, and there was still time. It would be the rational thing to do to avoid an accident, but a voice in the back of her head urged her not to. She looked around and saw that swerving left or right would result in a collision with the railings, or even worse, crash through them and down onto the road underneath. So she did as her brain instructed and drove on, not caring about the consequences, not caring about anything but saving her life and those of her passengers. She drove straight into the woman, who did not even wince as the vehicle hit her. It was as though she was made out of thin air, and the car simply passed through her. Anusia looked into the rearview mirror in disbelief, only to see the woman still standing where she had been. But she turned around and saw her face was staring at them, yet there was no blood in sight. Then she disappeared. A collective hallucination, and the remainder of their journey home was normal. The next day, Anusia was recounting her story at the hospital, telling a colleague about a woman on the bridge. In the middle of her story, she noticed a patient staring wide-eyed at her. He was a middle-aged man with a broken leg and arm, and his face was cut open and badly bruised. He stared at her with an expression of awe. Anusia couldn't help but be a little creeped out. When she asked the man if he needed something, he asked her anxiously, "You really encountered her too? You got away?" "What do you mean, me too?" Anusia asked hesitantly. "The woman in white," he said. Blood began to pulse through Anusia's body. She never said anything about the woman wearing white. Had this patient seen the same thing? He then took a long breath. "There's a legend about the place," he murmured. "Many people see her. She's a vengeful spirit. Probably rightfully so. She met her end on the bridge where she was killed by a drunk driver. She only appears to people when they have been drinking. Now you know the people who swerve all over the road usually aren't thinking straight. They crash into the railing, sometimes flying over the ledge to their deaths. You should consider yourself lucky." The reality of what happened finally hit Anusha. The logical part of the brain told her he was crazy. It was just a coincidence. It just couldn't have been real. She didn't believe in ghosts. "You have no proof," Anusha exclaimed as a bead of sweat trickled down the nape of her neck. "No proof?" he shouted back as he gestured to his broken bones and torn up face. "I'm living proof. I swerved to miss her, almost damn near died." Anusha looked at the patient in shock, realizing how fortunate she'd been. And with that, she never doubted the existence of the supernatural ever again. Thanks so much for listening. Like and share if this video gave you the chills. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell for notifications. See you next time.